Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first of a very special series of sessions that we're going to be hosting this year, which is all about the importance of mentoring. Many of you will know that we relaunched our PA Forum mentoring initiative back when we were all in the midst of the pandemic, and it was it was a bit of a lifesaver, really, for quite a lot of people. It was for me particularly because it was a fantastic way to be able to connect people together. But as we've just been discussing before the recording went live, life is very, very busy at the moment. And I think the power of mentoring is just absolutely awesome. If you're watching this and you're thinking about, you know, I'm ready, I'm at a stage of my career where I want to try and give back. This is absolute with mentoring can be an absolutely fantastic way to be able to give back. Kerrie is going to be joining us as our speaker today, and we are delighted that we've got a fantastic partnership with the Association of Business Mentors going forward with the PA Forum for 2025. And Kerrie is very much going to be with us every step of the way this year as we help and support our mentors that would like to volunteer as part of the PA Forum mentoring initiative to give back and be able to support our community today. And we will be talking about a little bit more about how you can get involved with the mentoring program after Kerrie's completed her session with us today. And I would also like to introduce you then to our amazing team who are going to be supporting us and supporting you throughout this process throughout 2025 as well. So I am going to ask Kerrie if she could share her screen with us and do a little bit of an intro into the Association of Business Mentors. For those of you who haven't met Kerrie, she delivered a session for us about 3 or 4 years ago at our conference, and absolutely fantastic. I am absolutely delighted that she's decided to work with us this year. It's a pleasure bringing you back in again, Kerrie, after so many years. We just caught up. We hadn't had a chance to catch up with each other and just to talk to each other again and understand more about what our ambitions are and what we want to try and achieve for both of our communities this year has been really fantastic. So thank you so much for coming back and joining us, Kerrie, and for gifting your time. We really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's such a pleasure working with you, Daniel, because you're so passionate about everything, and I just love the energy. And hopefully I can match that. However, you filled me with a tiny bit of fear. Can you not see my screen? Can you not see my slides?
No, it was on before. It was there before, but I can't see. I can see the presentation in the court. Can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. We were on the screen, Kerrie. Sorry, it's
Okay.
my fault. I probably pressed the wrong button somewhere. I do apologise.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. It warms my heart that I'm not the only one that doesn't ever make friends with tech. We will never ever get to that stage of a relationship, I don't think. Anyway, okay, so great. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Kerrie Dorman, and I'm the founder and chief ambassador of the Association of Business Mentors. And so weirdly, I actually left the Association of Business Mentors a couple of years ago, which is why I hadn't seen Daniel for ages. And in my absence, it's actually grown exponentially. And the CEO asked me last year to come back and to run the training and spearhead the workplace mentoring programs. So so I did. So I came back. I was refreshed after a bit of a sabbatical, and I ended up working my local pub, which was just so much fun. But I'm now back, and this is what I do for the Association of Business Mentors. So today we're going to be talking about the importance of mentoring. We're going to look at the difference between mentoring and coaching, which is a question that I'm asked probably the most. And then we're going to have a little look at what could go wrong with a relationship. And I'm also going to share with you some feedback as to how an effective mentoring program can work within an organization.
Little doors are expanding. Yeah.
Huh?
So
And then we're going to do a tiny little exercise. So I'm hoping, Daniel, that we can put people into team rooms. Can we do that?
I think I might be able to do that, Kerrie. I think if any of the team are on and they can help me do that, that would be absolutely amazing if
Let's cross
possible.
that bridge when we get to it. Brilliant,
Thank you.
brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to crack on. So, does anybody know who these two gentlemen are? Can you raise a hand if anybody knows? That'd be amazing if anybody does know.
Wow, does anyone know? Any hands up?
Any hands? No, I can't see any. Okay, so
Okay.
this is oh, it's not Socrates, but it's that's really close. So this is Odysseus and Mentor. And the story, the Greek mythology goes as this. So there's a gentleman called Odysseus, and he was asked to go, well, he was summoned to go and fight in the Trojan Wars, which lasted a very, very long time. In fact, I think it was well over 10 years. And so he had a young son called Telemachus, and he knew that when he was going to be away, that Telemachus would go through adolescence. And he didn't feel that it was quite appropriate for him to be in a house full of women. So he had a wife called Penelope and daughters, but he didn't feel that was a great environment for him to go through adolescence. And so he asked his great mate, Mentor, if Telemachus could go and live with him whilst he was going through the transition of adolescence. And so that's what happened. Telemachus went to live with Mentor, and he was his trusted guide, advisor, and friend throughout the transition of when he became a man. And so in the 1970s, the Americans picked up on this theme and brought it into their corporates, and they introduced the whole theme of mentoring and matching people who had been there and done it, so the sort of the more grey-haired people with younger people coming through the system, and they mentored their own people. This then trickled through to the UK, to their London offices, and we picked up on this within the corporate environment. And then in the early noughties, it found its way into the small business arena, and then the rest is history. But now it is a fantastic and well supported and encouraged form of transferring knowledge, building motivation, confidence, and just a really healthy way of supporting people who are yet to travel paths that we have already traveled. And so that's the story from myth to modern day. So most people are quite interested to see where it's all come from. And so there it is. Okay, so this is one of my favorite pictures that I get from Google when I type in coach. Obviously, this is nothing to do with the coaching that we're talking about here today, but I just like it because it stands for everything that coaching in this world is not. But the question that I am asked ad nauseum is, what's the difference between a mentor and a coach? So the answer is this. To be a coach, anyone can be a coach, but you have to have the relevant training, the qualifications, the insurance, and you have to engage with something called supervision. And so anyone can do that as long as they go through that process. To be a mentor, you have to have first-hand experience within the arena of which you are mentoring. So because I started off life as a small business owner, I have the experience to mentor small business owners and help them to avoid all the pitfalls that I fell into in my journey of running a small business. So that is the key difference between a mentor and a coach. A coach cannot use experience to coach. They use questioning techniques, and they, for want of a better word, empower the person that they're working with to make their own decisions and build confidence. A mentor can use their own experience. They have to use their experience in order to guide their mentee. Now, we come across, it's quite prolific actually, but now mentors are also coaches. So the best formula possible is to have the experience and to mentor, but have coaching qualifications as well. And that's where we are really now in this modern day of mentoring and coaching, is that the most effective mentors and coaches wear both hats and they can switch. And in fact, the ILM 7 qualifications in this day, they are ILM 7 in coaching and mentoring. So it's both, and the blend is highly effective. But they are the key differences between mentoring and coaching. And neither of them include shouting like this poor frustrated coach here. So I wanted to talk to you about why it's so important, and the relevance of this visual is the proof is in the pudding. So for the person, there's mentoring can bring a sense of belonging. It can bring preparation for a promotion. It can provide increased productivity for a person because they feel valued and heard. And it can be used as a mentor should open up their network to a mentee, so increased introductions, insight into crucial experience. This is a big one. It's the insight into experience and how that experience can guide and support a mentee. Support with conflict. I get this quite a bit in workplace mentoring programs, that mentees, a lot of mentees tend to have issues with their direct report, with their line manager. And these issues and these conflicts can be talked about in a mentoring session because it's highly confidential, and it's the opportunity for a mentee to rant and to rave and just shed those frustrations, and a mentor will be able to guide their mentee as to how to operate in such a situation. Now, for the organization, there's all sorts of wonderful good stuff that comes out. So one of the most interesting for me is the increased retention rates. So for for companies that have a mentoring program, retention rates are increased up to 20%. And that is because of all the points that I've just pointed out for the individual, because they feel valued, they feel a sense of belonging, and they're getting the support in order to progress. In fact, mentees and mentors, so mentees on a mentoring program are 5 times more likely to get promoted. Mentors on a mentoring program who have received training and all the rest, they are 6 times more likely to get promoted. So it just shows how enriching the whole experience can be if it's done correctly, but we'll come on to that in just a second. So retention rates up to 20% higher, increased productivities up to 72%. That's amazing. I'm not quite sure how they gauge that, but obviously they do. Does your organization have an internal mentoring program? Is that a question to all of you guys?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Kerrie. I was just I'm just asking the group while you're going through all of this, because I think it's really interesting that
Yes.
you say that, because I hope you don't mind me chipping in, but I was just saying
Please.
one of the most, I think in our profession particularly, we are always looking for routes for progression, whether that be personally or professionally. And I think to hear those types of figures that you were saying about the promotional opportunities that are available within a mentoring program is fascinating. 5 or 6 times more likely to be promoted. That's just a fascinating number. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love those stats. I think it's just indicative of how powerful mentoring can be. So it seems like there's quite a few mentoring programs going on. That's great. That's good to, but not at your level, Nikki. Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting that people are saying,
Mm.
again, there might be a mentoring program in place within the organization across multiple roles, but I think for the PAEA community, which is it's a very specialized role within an organization that
Of
holds so
course.
much confidentiality and so much, they are normally the people that hold so much information about the business and are holding that confidentially, knowing what the business plan is for the future, having oversight across all the different departments. I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, for those of you that are saying not at our level, they could be supporting CEO level or managing director level or SLT, that there isn't anything within the organization that can kind of match the level that they're at in terms of the information that they're working on or holding, for example.
Mm. Well, luckily for everybody here, the PA Forum is going to be running a mentoring program precisely for that very reason, I'd imagine. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so there was, yes, I'll just whip through these last few set of stats. What else have I got? Oh, the positive cultural change. So executives cited that, all of them in these particular research from Mentaloop, Think Learning, and Forbes. All of them cited an increase in cultural change, and that will be because mentors at a certain level will gain insight through their mentees as to what's happening at their levels. And so through that insight, that creates awareness, and awareness creates all sorts of wonderful effects for things along the line of culture. And this is really interesting too. So increased company profits, 18% better than average. I mean, that's massive. And so that obviously will link to the increased productivity. But that all of that links to the fact that mentees and mentors feel valued. So mentors feel needed and mentees feel listened to. So, that's where all the magic happens. And I just wanted to read you back a feedback form that I got from a program that I was running in a publishing company, actually. Where is it? Just because it's just really interesting. So everybody on programs that I run have to fill in a feedback form after they've wrapped up their mentoring relationships, just so that I know that it's been effective and that both mentor and mentee have actually got what they needed from the relationship. So so I just have 5 questions. The first one is, how well did you think the training sessions went? Answer, we both felt it was a good introduction to the program. It was great to establish the expectations and parameters of the relationship. And the second question is, where did the mentoring add most value? So we've got here motivation. After each session, I felt inspired and kept applying 1 or 2 actions throughout the month until the next session. It's so motivating to see the results of applying those actions. Oh, and she puts in productivity here too. Productivity with George, who's the mentor, guiding me through when I felt stuck or a bit lost. I've worked more purposefully and have kept my energy and focus in challenging times. The mentoring scheme is benefiting my team also because I pass on all the good advice that I'm getting from my mentor. This is obviously done confidentially. Then I ask, did you both experience benefit? Yes, it was motivating, blah, blah, blah. How did the ongoing support happen? It was good. It was a good reminder that we were part of a program. So they all loved it because I got them all together once a month for 20 minutes and they could share stories and they all learned from each other, which was great. So what would you add onto the next cohort? And they said advice on how and when to taper down the mentoring relationship would be useful. So that was just feedback from me. But that's all the good stuff that comes out of mentoring and why it is so important. Okay, the relationship. What could go wrong? Can anybody tell me what they can see here? What is this visual telling you? What's happening? What's happened here?
If anyone's happy to put in the chat box,
Put in the
I'll
chat.
facilitate and talk to Kerrie. No names mentioned, anything like that. But I think it's a really interesting question, Kerrie, because I think if you are thinking about putting yourself forward as a mentor, for example, there is these questions about what could potentially go wrong in the relationship for sure.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. they've become too close. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So with mentoring and mentor-mentee relationships, we have to remember that they are professional relationships. And what has happened in the past, not infrequently actually, is that there's been a parent-child relationship that's established just because of the nature of what mentoring is all about. And they become reliant, an umbilical cord is built. That's not what we're here to do, and becomes very dangerous. So when we go through the training, and we will actually cover this in far more detail in a session, I think it's in a couple of months' time, it is about establishing boundaries and making sure that they are revisited on a very regular basis to prevent that happening and becoming too comfortable, yeah, and to involve trying to resolve the issue. Yes, that happens frequently. I actually also have been very guilty of that. So mentors are not there to fix things. They are there to guide a mentee to fix their own things. And often, because mentors are people who naturally want to give, it's just a natural characteristic of a mentor. We want to fix things for our mentee if it's not going quite right, but that is a derailment. But what has actually happened here is a connection. And that's what happens with mentoring relationships. We have to be able to connect with each other, and not all matches will provide that. And that can be for a variety of reasons. So personality and character, for one, it's really important with the matching process. I know, Daniel, you're very keen to get into the detail of this, that the character and personality of both people are considered, so that there is a match that can work. And the other thing is that a mentor will sign up to be a mentor, but actually doesn't have the capacity time-wise, and will constantly reschedule, not turn up, and that just devalues the whole purpose of a mentoring relationship. And the mentees often take it personally. So if you are going to be a mentor and you are assigned, you're matched with a mentee, and you find that your schedule just can't support the commitment, then the sooner you realize it, the better. Go back to the facilitator, who will be Dan, and then a rematch can happen. And that's not a bad thing. It happens. You know, we are very busy people, but it's just making sure that we realize it sooner rather than later, so that it can be sorted out and a mentee can be rematched. But I love those comments, because no one else has ever, I use this visual quite a bit, no one else has come up with those actually, so that's great. I love the thinking. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So
I just, sorry, Kerrie, I just also wanted to say, I think
yes.
this is really interesting because I think this actually, what a lot of people are sometimes talking about as well, is sometimes the relationship between executive and PAEA. Because I think sometimes there are boundaries, you know, we get asked a lot, how do you set those boundaries between that relationship? So it's interesting. I think some of that has also come through here as well, about sometimes how close the relationship is between the CEO or the managing director and their PA or executive assistant, for example. So I find that really interesting as well. So thanks everybody for
That must be quite difficult to manage, I'd imagine. So what would be your default guidance on that, Dan?
I think it's difficult to say because I think help me out here if you're in the chat box. I think sometimes there is, you know, you can get, for example, a PA could be looking after four managers, for example, each of them with very, very different personalities, very, very different needs. At the moment, we're getting a lot that are, you know, some of them are quite self-sufficient, would like to look after their own kind of diaries and you know, inboxes, for example. Some of them, you know, getting to grips with AI. And then you've got others. I had a lady the other day who was saying they still like to dictate emails to them. So how do you manage those different personalities all at the same time who could be contacting you after hours, who could be expecting things if they're sending you an email at 9 o'clock at night. Do they need a response to that straight away? How do you set those boundaries within
Mm,
those working relationships? I think that's really interesting. It comes through in the mentoring relationship as well, and exactly what people have said here, not to be too reliant and
mm,
not to be able to involve yourself too much in trying to resolve their problem for them, but more helping and guiding them through the process with your experiences and how that can work. So I think that's really good. I think the mentoring program can help you to help set those boundaries also with your manager going forward as well, in having the relationship documentation, setting objectives, having regular meetings together. I think it could be really helpful from that perspective as well.
yeah, I like this comment. They're also grown-ups at the end of the day. I can imagine that that's often forgotten. Yes.
I
So
think sometimes,
but it's quite difficult, isn't it, setting boundaries? And so, but when we go into this in more detail, it's literally there's a little sort of list of aspects of a relationship boundary that you need to discuss in mentoring mentee and mentor. But I can imagine that, when you're talking, when you're trying to set a boundary with someone who's effectively your boss, that's quite difficult, isn't it? But to be firm is the key, and that's the same as a mentor. Yeah, no, interesting. So there's a couple of other things that so there's a big thing actually that I want to share with you that is a derailment of a mentoring relationship, and that is ego. So in some of these firms where I've set up programs, there have been people wanting to be a mentor because it feeds their ego. And basically, they are just not great, healthy people. And normally I can spot that quite early on, which is where the training comes in. And it's really important to be able to see that, um, because there's no place for ego in a mentoring relationship. We are not mentoring to make ourselves feel bigger, better, more important. And in training, I talk about the mentoring door. It's a bit like, I'd imagine for you guys, it's the professional door. So when we go into a mentoring session, if you walk through the mentoring door, or just before you click on a Zoom to record, it's like a zapper. It's like when you go into the airport security and you go through the zapper. You just leave everything behind from the rest of your day, your to-do list, your last meeting, and you turn up and you're present and you are there, and you're there to give and to support and to guide as best as possible that for your mentee. So I'd imagine it's a little bit like that for you guys, because you must be going from one thing to the other crazy all the time. And so for important meetings, I'd imagine you'd need a zapper too. So, but I talk about the mentoring door, and that's what I mean when I talk about it. And it's quite difficult actually when we're so busy to remember to do that, and we take all the baggage of the rest of the stuff that we're carrying around on our shoulders and in our heads. But to be effective, we need to be able to leave that behind. So the other thing about mentoring, it's all about storytelling. And I love telling a story, and stories are the way that we express experience and what happens with those experiences. And there's a fantastic TED talk by David Phillips, but he has an initial in the middle there to separate him from somebody else. David J. Phillips, and he's Swedish. And it's actually 14 minutes long. If you have a spare 14 minutes, check him out, David J. Phillips. And it's all about the power of how you tell a story, and it's how you can keep people highly engaged and listening, and how the ethos of the story can translate into what they need to hear. Someone found it. Dan, is that you? Found on YouTube. Amazing. Thank you. That's
yeah,
great.
I just typed it in, so I thought I'd share the link just in case anybody wanted to. I hope it's the right one, but yeah, it said the magic of storytelling.
That's it. David J. Phillips. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. It also carries it carries the point about PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint, and also not having too many words on your slides. So hopefully you've noticed that actually only one of my slides has had bullet points on. But did you know that it is impossible for humans to read and listen at the same time? That's a stat that I've picked up on, because and so having a slide full of writing is completely pointless, because then everyone's busy reading them and not listening to you telling a story. So we're going to do a little exercise now. We're going to go into team rooms. How many of us are there?
There's
17. Oh,
18 of us.
it's 18 of us.
Uh, yeah, I'm literally not sure how I know to put everybody into team rooms.
Okay, well, whilst you're working it out, I'm going to tell a little story that I tell to kick off this exercise. And the point of the exercise is that we get used to sharing. So sharing something personal, sharing something that it could be personal or professional, but it's about hearing your own voice and sharing, because that's what mentoring is all about. It's sharing your experience. And so my story that I love to share is it's about giving blood. So I give blood on a regular basis because I've got one of the rarer blood types. And also I started giving blood when I was traveling in Australia, because you get a free cup of tea and a cookie. But actually, that led to me realizing that my blood type is just constantly running out. So anyway, I go and I give blood. About 2 years ago, I was sitting in the chair giving blood, and the nurse comes over and she says, "Oh, you've got special blood." I said, "Well, it's just one of the rarer blood types." And she said, "No, no, it goes to the neonatal clinic to for the babies, for the premature babies." And I just thought, oh my God, that's just amazing. And I've just welled up and thought, oh, that's so cool. And then, so I was sharing this story in another situation like this, and I was challenged about sharing this information. And this gentleman said to me that it's all very well and good sharing that story, Kerrie, but what does that tell us? That's a really good question. It tells you that I'm a giver, that I'm maternal, which in a professional relationship can raise a flag, just awareness, because we don't want to go into that parental relationship. We want to remain professional. And it shows that I'm very willing to go once a quarter to give my blood. So, it's a few things there. So the point of the story is that we share our experiences, and hopefully that kicks off the whole point of mentoring. Right, how are we
I
doing,
think
Dan?
I
Can you
think
get us?
if it's all right with you, Kerrie, just because I'm conscious that people might not be in an environment where they're able to talk, because if they're in an open plan office, for example, they might not be able to take part. So what, if it's okay with you, I'll share a story, if that's all
Great.
right. And
Yeah.
then I think perhaps if we could set this as an exercise that people could potentially do with colleagues, maybe, or somebody that they might, be having a coffee with, for example, does that would be okay with you? But
Yes, of course.
I think so. A story that I can tell that I would probably share is I
Yes.
think that enables people to, I guess, relate to me, because I think when you're telling a story, I always say this, we walk into a room potentially when we're networking, and we do have our professional heads on, and we do think about um, how we appear to everybody else. But what I always think is we are all human. So when I used to be a holiday rep, for example, I would go into a hotel and I would have to go and speak to guests. I'd have to force myself to go over to those people on those sun loungers that probably saw me approaching and put their glasses on, put their headphones in, not want to talk to me whatsoever. But for me personally, I love to hear about people's stories. And I think when you walk into a room and you're approaching somebody, when you actually ask that question, tell me all about you. I'd love to know more about you. Tell me about your journey. People get surprised and they get taken back. I tell the story about when I started my career as a holiday rep and I was a 9 foot yellow banana called Bella. That's a story for another day. But many people are fascinated by the fact that when I was 17, I got on a plane and I went over to Turkey and I never came back for 3 years at that time, because people might think that they've never done that before. But when I hear stories from other people about things that they've done in their life that I just never had that experience of, it absolutely fascinates me. And I just think to myself, travel and traveling around the world and those different things that we do, or all these beautiful and wonderful holiday destinations that we go to, whether that's UK or worldwide, it's just always fascinating to hear about where people have been, the things that they've seen in their lives, the things that they've experienced that you just will have never experienced yourself before. And actually getting to know that is always really important. So asking people about where they've been and the things that they've experienced is just always, or hobbies. I think hobbies are always another one. We do a session around networking and we always talk about what people's hobbies are. And we always think that when you get 20 people on a screen, there's always two or three that instantly have the same hobby or the same connection that they're doing that they don't talk about. I think crocheting came up at one of the events that we did previously, and all of a sudden you've got three people in a room that just all absolutely love crocheting. Instant connection there, which is always fantastic. So I think, just to build on your point, that telling a story and sharing a piece of you that you're happy to share is always really important because it just helps to break down those barriers.
And that's hit the nail on the head with mentoring relationships. So the
Mm,
ability of the mentor to break down those initial barriers is absolutely key, because a
mm,
mentee will arrive slightly in awe, not knowing quite what to expect. And it's not a natural thing for us to open up. And so one of the skills of a mentor is to be able to create that relaxed environment so that you get so this is why I have the visual of an onion here, is because we're peeling away the layers nice and slowly so that we're creating that wonderful, safe, confidential environment, excuse me, so that a mentee will open up. And telling and sharing stories is one of the key ways of doing that. Um, Oh, that's a note from Ellie about how to do meeting rooms. Yes, sorry, I didn't take into consideration that people might not be in a place to be able to talk, but that's
that's
all.
okay. I think it's a great one we can build into the training coming up, though.
Yes.
If we'll let people know then. So if we're in a room or something, we can talk then, Kerry, if that's okay with you. I tried this once before and I realised that people are sometimes in an open plan office, so I didn't realise that we wouldn't be able to do that. So I do apologise.
Yeah, sorry, that's me. I totally did not bear that in mind. But anyway, that's great. I think that we've put the point over there, and it's all about. And so actually, I've stolen this whole concept of the onion from a coach, a well-known coach called Julie Starr, and she wrote the mentoring manual, which is actually a fantastic resource if you're interested. It's about £10 off Amazon. But what I love about it is that there's no jargon. It's just normal talk about the importance of being an effective mentor and mentee. And she gives little exercises like listening exercises and stuff like that. Anyway, she was a keynote speaker at our conference a little while ago, and she was talking about onions and about how mentoring is like peeling away the onion, and then when both mentor and mentee are down to the nub of the onion, then that's it. Then that's where all the good stuff happens. But to get there, we need to create trust, and that doesn't come easy to a lot of people. So just bear that in mind when you think about the onion. Really? Okay. So we've got a mentee for first meeting tomorrow with your mentor. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'll be really interested to hear how it goes, Melanie, and I wonder if your mentors had any formal support or training. Do you know, or have you?
I haven't had any formal training though. There's lots of e-learning available in our learning management system, and I believe my mentor has had some formal training. They have to go through an application process to become a mentor within the business.
Right.
So I assume she has been appropriately trained.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. So another stat that's really interesting that comes from David Clutterbuck. I never have my own, I just borrow other people's. So Professor David Clutterbuck is like our industry guru, and he did some research a couple of years back, and he came up with the fact that 1/3 of mentoring relationships will work. 2/3 will work if the mentor has training, but over 90% work if both the mentor and the mentee have some form of formal guidance and support. So, but anyway, this is timely, Melanie. I hope it helps for you in your first session. And just a little bit of a heads up that this actually is my own research, is that the first mentoring session is always full of fizz. So it's a bit exciting. You're meeting your mentor. You've got, you're establishing your relationship and starting to pick away at their brain of, seeing what they have to give to offer you. The second meeting is also full of fizz because the mentee has had time to soak up all the good stuff and wants to come back and report back. So it's really interesting. But then the third session is where the work kicks in. And to make the third, fourth, and fifth session equally as effective and productive, the mentor has to do a bit of work. And so that is where there's a natural downturn. And so historically, sessions 3 and 4 can often not ever happen, or happen really long after session 1 and 2 for that very reason. Should that happen to you, just diarise the session and do your own agenda for your mentor, just to get over that little tiny hump. You made sure to put in a series of meetings. Excellent. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love it. Love it. And that's very, very organised. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is mentoring initiatives and how should they work. So this visual is to put the point across, is that they should have momentum, they should be effective, they should be engaging, and they should be providing a return on the investment of time and whoever is facilitating the initiative at your organization. So it's not to fall asleep and let the fizz run out. So with initiatives in an organization, there should be the reasons why. So why is a mentoring initiative being put in place? And this should be articulated by the facilitator, which is usually someone in the HR department or the L&D department. So there should be the reasons why, and it should align with L&D objectives and goals for that time period. So as an example, with one of my clients, it was a publishing company, I think I've mentioned that before. Their DE&I team wanted to run a reverse mentoring program so that the mentees, who were the senior executives, they were all board members actually, all 6 of them. The point was for them to see and understand what was going on at the grassroots of the company in terms of LGBT, in terms of race, in terms of gender, neurodiversity, and there's one more. Oh, what was it? Anyway, that gives you a really good idea. So that was in line with what they wanted to do in terms of the ED&I team within learning and development, was to increase awareness of those very specific areas. And it was really interesting. So the board members didn't necessarily initiate this, but they did all sign up to it and commit to it, and they all learned an awful lot from the initiative. And there were policies that were ripped up, rewritten, and there was management training that came out of it as well, which was really, really good. So just increasing that awareness of what goes on in these pockets of areas within a firm, very, very important. And so how should they work? They should be run for a certain amount of time. It shouldn't be infinite. They're normally the best and most effective programs are run for about 9 to 10 months, and 6 sessions should be held within that time period. And in the interim, there should be check-ins by the facilitator to make sure that both mentee and the mentor are getting what they need out of it, and then there's no frustration. So on programs that I run, I do 15-minute skills sessions every month, and then mentees get together and mentors get together, and then they can swap notes, and they have a skill that they can take to the table for their next session, so that the engagement doesn't ever fizzle out. And then lastly, they should be completed with a proper process and feedback asked for, requested from both mentor and mentee. And what I have found the most effective, and I've tried lots of various different things, is the mentor and the mentee completing the feedback together, because that then helps bring the relationship to a very healthy close. And then that feedback goes back to HR, and they can prove that there's been a return on everybody's investment, which is normally time. So there we go.
I think thank you so much, Kerrie. If it's okay with you, I think I'm just going to spend the last 10 minutes just talking about the mentoring initiative, if that's okay, how the support you're giving us, our wonderful team that we're working with as well. So if it's all right, we'll come back onto main screen, if that's all right, if you don't mind.
Yes. Let me stop sharing.
Kerrie, I hope you don't mind for those who are supporting our initiative. I'd love to just have a quick chat with you. Louise, are you there? I'm going to put you on the spot now. Louise, you have decided and kindly volunteered your time to support our mentoring initiative. You've been one of our mentors throughout this initiative. Tell everybody, if you don't mind, very briefly, a little bit about you, lovely. I'm not going to ask you to talk too much because I don't want you to to put you on the spot too much. Tell us about you, Louise.
Oh, thanks, Dan. I started my career, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, so I decided to do admin as a fallback, really. And I did my NVQ level 2 administration, then my NVQ level 3 via an apprenticeship, and I've worked my way up from office junior all the way up to now a business assistant. So I feel like I've got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to share, really.
Louise works, you at Arup, aren't you, Louise?
I am.
Yeah, it's Louise she's had a few mentees through this program. She's incredibly passionate about mentoring. And so Louise is going to come on board and help support, because I think, Kerrie, just exactly what you were saying, we started our mentoring initiative, had loads of fizz, more fizz than Prosecco. But then unfortunately, life gets busy. A lot of our dedicated mentors ended up moving on to different roles or doing different ambitions within life. And, there is only myself and Mel really that are running all these different initiatives across the PA forum. So it's been really important for us to reach out to our community, ask for some volunteers to come on board and help us to really relaunch this program. And Louise has kindly gifted her time. So we're very grateful to you, Louise. I just wanted to say hello while everyone was on. I know you're going to kill me afterwards, but hello. Thank you. Lisa, tell us about you, if that's okay. Lisa, how are you?
Me, I'm fine. Yeah, I've offered my services to help be a mentor. I am a mentor internally at our organisation, and we don't. It's not job role specific. So I've mentored an apprentice who didn't really seem to need me. So it was like looking after my son. And I know his mum, so I think he kind of felt the fear that he'd got to two mums looking after him potentially. I've also mentored externally. I've got one mentor relationship that's been going on for over a year. That may not necessarily be healthy for it to go on for so long, but it works, and we click. And I don't get involved in her life. She doesn't get involved in mine, but we have regular 6 weekly calls, and I just listen. And sometimes when there's been the intention to do something that I think might be a little bit extreme, I've said, stop, take the helicopter view. What would everybody else think? What do you think you should be doing? And I've stopped doing a few things that would have been a bit silly. And she's flourishing in her career now, doing really well. Well, she was doing well beforehand, but she is doing really well now. And I've also helped in a couple of other PA networks for mentoring. I'm just waiting for the next couple of people to come along. I enjoy sharing my experiences, having been starting from a junior position and then going up to be chief exec's PA. And at 52, I've got quite a bit of experience, I think, to be able to share.
We're very grateful, Lisa. Thank you so much for volunteering your time and coming on board with us. I really appreciate it. Rachel, tell us about you, lovely.
Hi, so my experience is very similar to Louise. I started as an office junior and worked my way through to being a PA in my current role. And I think I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I think when you sit and have a look back, I think I could have benefited in my early career from a mentor. So that's something that I'm quite passionate about now, is supporting people in our profession, because I think in some organisations as well, people feel that there isn't the trust there, that they may think that they can confide in someone, but then that trust gets broken within an organisation. So I think it's important that if we've got an external initiative, that people can think, oh, okay, so at least I've got someone that I can confide in, and then so that's where I like to kind of put my support in. And I'm similar to Lisa as well, where I've done an external mentoring initiative, and then the person that I was paired up with asked me to continue to be their mentor afterwards. So we're just in like that second phase now, which is really nice for me, and to know that what I'm sharing of my own experience is actually helping someone in theirs. So yeah, mentoring is really important for me, and it's just nice to be able to give back in our profession as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Ellie, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. So similar to everyone else, I started my career as a secretary, moving into the legal profession. So I was a junior legal secretary, then I moved to legal PA. Then I joined Economy as the C-suite EA. So I was covering about 9 to 13 people, pretty much covering quite a lot of people, and booking a lot of travel more than anything. So I think I was a glorified travel agent for the most part. And then last year I got promoted to head of internal communications. So I feel that being an EA is my comfort role. I still do dip into that now and again. You know, if they need something, they need hotel group bookings or meetings organising, and they say, well, you don't do that anymore. I said, but this is my comfort zone. It's almost like it's something that we know how to do because we've done it for so long. And sometimes people can't always see the people logistics. So putting people into meetings and, diary work, I think it is quite a complicated thing that people don't always realise. And it is something that's specifically EA, PA, admin support functions that know how to do people logistics.
Equally, congratulations on moving in. We're seeing a lot of our members, I think Kerrie will agree, a lot of the time when you're doing a mentoring initiative, it could be you might decide. I remember a coach saying to me once, I was asking, saying if I could get somebody I know really well supported through coach, and she said, once you start going down the coaching journey, you can't stop it. in the fact that if that person decides that they want to move on to something different, or they've got a different ambition in life, that's what the revelation that can come through coaching or mentoring. And so you might realize that you sidestep into a different role. We've had so many people that have gone through our mentoring initiative that now work in different roles that aren't necessarily PA or EA related, but their roots are always there, and it's the roots that helps them get to where they want to be today. And so we're very grateful to you as well, Ellie. So thank you. We've also got Claire, and Claire Hands and Sarah Arnott. I don't think they're on this call today, but I'm conscious of time as well. So we will make sure that we send through some information about the team that are happy to support this program. Um, if any of you would like to come on board and volunteer your time this year to join us on this journey of giving back to those within the profession, we would love you to be able to sign up to our mentoring initiative this year as a mentor, or perhaps you might be looking for a mentor and you might like some further information. Kerrie is going to be with us every step of the way this year. Thanks, Kay. So if you she's going to be offering training throughout the sessions that we're doing to bring our mentors together, so those mentors feel supported throughout their journey. And that we will build a really great community of mentors that will all be able to work together and support each other. I'm conscious of time, so I will send through a big follow-up to everybody. If you're watching this recording back, please get in touch with us, because we'd love to be able to tell you more about the program that we've got on offer this year. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us. It was brilliant to be able to welcome you today. Thank you, Kerrie, for all the time that you're going to be giving us this year, and thank you to our wonderful team. I'm looking forward to working with you all as well. It's going to be a brilliant 2025, fingers crossed. So thank you, everybody. Have a fab rest of the week, and we will catch up with you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now how do I stop the recording? There we go. There we go.